I am Adam, 34 years old, and a single father to my 8-year-old son, Ethan. My relationship with my parents has always been strained, but nothing prepared me for their betrayal on my son's birthday. When I discovered the $7,900 charge on our joint family credit card the day after they stood up, something inside me finally broke. That transaction receipt was the last straw in years of disappointment. Now I stand in my doorway watching them wait in the rain, knowing everything has changed. Before I tell you how I finally stood up to my manipulative family, let me know where you are watching from. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to make difficult choices to protect someone you love. Growing up in my household was like living in a perfectly staged home for a real estate showing. Everything looked immaculate on the surface, but nothing felt truly lived in or warm. My mother Diana, now 58, was obsessed with appearances and social standing. Our home was always spotless, our clothes always designer brands, and our family photos always looked like they belonged in magazines. But behind those perfect smiles were cold, distant relationships. My father Richard, 60 years old now, built his construction company from the ground up. His success story made for great dinner party conversation. But what those impressed guests never saw were the missed baseball games, forgotten school plays, and the constant message that nothing was more important than financial success. While he provided financially, he was emotionally bankrupt as a father. "A Parker never settles for mediocrity" was practically our family motto. Everything was about status connections and maintaining the image of success. This environment shaped my younger sister Ashley, now 31, into the perfect reflection of my parents' values. She followed every expectation they set, attended the prestigious business school they selected, and eventually joined my father's company as expected. Her compliance earned her the title of Golden Child, complete with praise, financial support, and unwavering approval. I, however, discovered early on that I valued different things in life. Teaching fascinated me. The idea of helping shape young minds and making a difference in children's lives pulled at me in a way that profit margins and business meetings never could. When I announced my intention to pursue education instead of joining the family business during my junior year of college, the temperature in our home dropped about 20 degrees. "Teachers are noble, Adam, but they do not live in houses like this," my father said, gesturing around our 5-bedroom home in one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the city. "Is this really how you want to throw away the opportunities we have given you?" My mother was more subtle but equally disapproving. "Darling, you are so smart. You could do anything. Why limit yourself?" The unspoken end of that sentence was clear. Why embarrass us? I persisted, completed my education degree, and began teaching middle school science. Every achievement in my career was met with lukewarm congratulations from my parents, always followed by some variation of "still time to change your mind," or "the door to the company is always open." Then I met Megan. Unlike the daughters of my parents' friends, they had unsubtly pushed me toward. Megan came from a modest background. Her father was a plumber. Her mother, a nurse. She was brilliant, finishing her PhD in astrophysics, passionate about education, and completely unimpressed by status or wealth. I fell hard and fast. My parents were polite to her face, but privately questioned my choice. "She seems nice enough, but is she really Parker material?" my mother asked once. The question made my blood boil. To me, Megan was not just Parker material, she was better than that. When we married, my parents threw us an extravagant wedding that was more about impressing their friends than celebrating our love. Megan saw through it, but graciously went along to keep the peace. "They are still your parents," she would remind me when their behavior frustrated me. "Family is complicated, but they are the only parents you will ever have." When Ethan was born 8 years ago, there was a brief golden period where I thought things might change. My parents seemed genuinely enchanted by their grandson, and for the first time I saw glimpses of warmth and genuine emotion from them. My mother would spend hours holding him, singing songs I never knew she knew. My father would proudly show off pictures to his business associates. It felt like Ethan might be the bridge that would finally connect our family in a meaningful way. But old patterns die hard. As Ethan grew from an adorable, compliant baby into a toddler with opinions and messy hands that could damage designer clothes and furniture, my parents became more distant again. Visits became shorter, and there were always excuses why they could not babysit or attend his preschool events. 3 years ago, Megan received an incredible opportunity to work with a renowned research team across the country. We tried long distance for 6 months, but ultimately our marriage could not survive the separation and different life paths. Our divorce was amicable, focused on what was best for Ethan. We agreed that given my stable teaching position and her demanding research schedule that involved frequent international travel, Ethan would live primarily with me. Megan stays connected through video calls and visits during school breaks, and we have managed to maintain a respectful co-parenting relationship. Since then, I have been raising Ethan largely on my own. My parents occasionally made appearances in our lives, usually when it was convenient or when there was an opportunity to show off their grandparenting on social media. They maintained a joint credit card with me established years ago for emergencies, and because we are family, but their emotional support was minimal and unpredictable. Over the years, a pattern emerged. My parents would promise to attend Ethan's school performances, sports games, or birthday celebrations. Ethan would get excited about seeing his grandparents, only to be disappointed when they canceled last minute for business dinners, charity galas, or golf tournaments with important connections. Each time I would watch my son's face fall, and then put on my brightest smile to convince him it was okay that Grandma and Grandpa still loved him very much. They were just very busy, important people. I tried to compensate for their absence by being both mom and dad to Ethan. I never missed a school event, coached his Little League team, helped with science projects, and read bedtime stories every night. I built a small but reliable support network of friends and fellow single parents who understood the challenges. But despite my best efforts, there was always a small shadow of sadness in Ethan when his grandparents failed to show up yet again. Children notice these things no matter how much we try to shield them. "Do Grandma and Grandpa not like coming to my school?" Ethan asked once after they missed his winter concert where he had a small solo part. The question broke my heart. "They love you very much," I assured him. "They just have very complicated schedules." It was becoming harder to make excuses for them, but I still tried to protect their image in his eyes. After all, they were his only grandparents. For weeks, I had been planning the perfect birthday celebration for Ethan's 8th birthday. My son had recently developed an obsession with dinosaurs and astronomy, an interesting combination that I encouraged wholeheartedly. As a science teacher, I was thrilled to foster his curiosity about the natural world and our universe. "Dad, did you know that some scientists think an asteroid killed the dinosaurs, and now we can look at asteroids with telescopes?" Ethan would excitedly tell me as I drove him to school. His enthusiasm was infectious, and I wanted his birthday to reflect his current passions. I spent 3 weeks meticulously planning every detail. I ordered a custom cake, shaped like a stegosaurus looking up at the stars. I found dinosaur decorations, planned fossil excavation activities in our backyard sandbox, and arranged for a local astronomy club member to bring a telescope for the kids to look at the daytime moon. Everything was coming together perfectly. The one thing I could not completely control was the guest list. Ethan had specifically asked if his grandparents would attend his party. "Will Grandma and Grandpa come?" This time he asked one evening as we made papier-mâché dinosaur eggs for the party. The hopefulness in his voice was unmistakable, and I felt that familiar knot forming in my stomach. "I will definitely invite them, buddy," I said carefully. "I know they would love to see you on your special day." That night, after Ethan went to bed, I called my parents. I was strategic in my approach, making sure to emphasize the importance of this event to Ethan rather than making it about my expectations of them. "He specifically asked if you would be there," I explained. "It would mean the world to him if you could make it even just for an hour or two." To my surprise, they responded with enthusiasm. "Of course we will be there for our only grandson's birthday," my mother declared. "We would not miss it for the world." "Put us down as definite yes," my father added. "I will clear my schedule." Despite years of disappointment, I felt a flutter of hope. Perhaps they finally understood how important their presence was to Ethan. Maybe they were finally ready to prioritize their relationship with their grandson over their social obligations. "That is great," I said, unable to keep the relief from my voice. "Ethan will be so excited." When I told Ethan the next morning that his grandparents had promised to come to his party, his face lit up with pure joy. "Really, Grandma and Grandpa are coming to my dinosaur party?" That is what they said, I confirmed, smiling at his excitement, while trying to temper my own cautious optimism. Over the next 2 weeks, I saved every penny I could from my teacher's salary to buy Ethan the telescope he had been dreaming about. It was not the professional-grade kind that astronomers use, but it was a significant step up from a toy telescope with actual optical glass lenses, and enough magnification to see the craters on the moon and even the rings of Saturn under magnification. The right conditions. At $400, it was far more than I would normally spend on a birthday gift, but seeing his growing interest in science made it worth the sacrifice. The days before the party were a flurry of shopping trips and preparations. I spent late nights after Ethan went to bed wrapping presents, assembling goodie bags, and transforming our modest backyard into a prehistoric wonderland. I even found constellation stickers that glowed in the dark to put on the ceiling of our covered patio, blending Ethan's two current obsessions. We had many conversations about space during those preparation days. Ethan was full of questions that I did my best to answer sometimes, looking up information to gather when I did not know. If the dinosaurs could look up at the stars, did they see the same stars we see now, he asked one night. That is a fantastic question, I replied. The stars were in slightly different positions because Earth has moved through space since then, but many of the same stars were there. Some stars have died since then and new ones have been born. He thought about this for a moment. So when we look at stars, we are kind of like time travelers. In a way, we absolutely are, I said, amazed by his insight. The light from those stars takes so long to reach us that we are seeing them as they were in the past. I invited 7 of Ethan's closest friends from school, plus a few of the neighborhood kids he played with regularly. I coordinated with their parents, arranging activities that would keep 8-year-olds engaged without becoming chaotic. I wanted everything to be perfect for him. The morning of the party, I woke up early to finish the final preparations. Ethan was up soon after, too excited to sleep in despite my suggestions that he try to get extra rest for his big day. Is it party time yet? He asked, bouncing into the kitchen in his dinosaur pajamas, his hair sticking up in all directions. Not quite yet, birthday boy, I laughed. We still have a few hours. Want to help me set up? He eagerly agreed, and together we hung the last of the decorations and arranged the activity stations. As we worked, Ethan kept mentioning his grandparents. I cannot wait to show Grandpa the fossil game, he said, and Grandma will love the space cupcakes we made. I nodded and smiled, but a familiar worry gnawed at me. Despite their promises, I could not shake the feeling that my parents might not follow through. Still, I pushed the thought aside. This was Ethan's day, and I was determined to make it special regardless of who showed up. As the final touch, I set up a small table near the entrance with a guest book for everyone to sign and a special place for gifts. I placed my card with a note about the telescope on top, imagining Ethan's face when he opened it later. Everything looks amazing, Dad, Ethan said, surveying our work with wide eyes. Only the best for my favorite 8-year-old, I replied, pulling him into a hug. The stage was set for what I hoped would be a memorable celebration. Now all we needed were the guests to arrive. At 2 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of the first guests. Ethan raced to the door, his excitement palpable, as he welcomed his friend Marcus and his parents. Soon more children arrived, filling our home with laughter and chatter. Each time the doorbell rang, Ethan would look at me with anticipation, hoping it would be his grandparents. By 2:30, most of the guests had arrived, but there was still no sign of my parents. Ethan approached me as I was setting out snacks. Are Grandma and Grandpa coming soon? He asked, trying to sound casual, but unable to hide the concern in his voice. I am sure they are on their way. I reassured him, checking my phone for any messages. There were none. Traffic might be bad. Why do not you go show Jacob your new dinosaur book while we wait? Ethan nodded and rejoined his friends, but I noticed him glancing at the door every few minutes. I tried calling my parents, but both calls went straight to voicemail. I left cheerful messages asking if they were close and mentioning that Ethan was excited to see them. By 3 o'clock, the party was in full swing. The kids were having a blast, with the fossil excavation game, digging up small dinosaur figures buried in the sandbox. The astronomy club volunteer had arrived with the telescope, and the children were taking turns looking at the daytime moon, squealing with delight when they could see its craters. Everyone was having fun except for Ethan, who kept stepping away from activities to check the front window. I tried calling my parents again, Still no answer. I sent text messages that showed as delivered but remained unread. A familiar sinking feeling settled in my stomach, but I fought to maintain a positive attitude for Ethan's sake. Your grandparents might be running really late, I told him gently when he approached me again. Sometimes grown-up things come up unexpectedly. But they promised they would come, Ethan, said his lower lip trembling slightly. They said they would not miss it. I know, buddy. Let us give them a little more time. Meanwhile, look how much fun your friends are having with the games you helped plan. Should we join them? Ethan nodded bravely and rejoined his friends, but the sparkle had dimmed in his eyes. I watched him put on a smile that did not quite reach his eyes, a skill he had unfortunately learned too young. Marcus's father approached me, offering a sympathetic smile. Everything okay? Ethan's grandparents were supposed to come, I explained quietly. They promised, but they have not shown up or called. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Family can be complicated. The party is great, though. You have done an amazing job. I thanked him and continued managing the party, making sure everything ran smoothly while periodically checking my phone. Still nothing from my parents. 4 o'clock came, and it was time for cake. We gathered everyone around the dining table where the dinosaur cake waited with 8 candles. Ethan stood before it wearing his paper dinosaur hat, surrounded by friends singing, "Happy Birthday." When the song ended, he hesitated before blowing out the candles. "Wait," he said suddenly. "Maybe we should wait a little longer for Grandma and Grandpa." The room fell quiet. I saw the other parents exchange glances and felt a rush of both heartbreak and anger. "I think we should go ahead with the candles while the cake looks perfect," I suggested gently. "You can make your wish now." Ethan looked at the door one more time, then back at the cake. He closed his eyes, made his wish, and blew out all 8 candles in one breath. Everyone cheered, and the moment passed. But I knew exactly what he had wished for. We served cake and ice cream, opened presents, and continued with the party activities. Ethan received books about space dinosaur toys, games, and clothes from his friends. He thanked everyone politely, his manners impeccable despite his disappointment. When he opened my gift, the telescope he had been dreaming about, his eyes widened with genuine excitement. "Really? My own real telescope," he gasped, jumping up to hug me tightly. "Thank you, Dad. It is the best present ever." For a moment he forgot about his missing grandparents, absorbed in examining his new prized possession. I showed him the basic features, promising we would set it up properly that night if the sky was clear. By 5:30 the party was winding down. Parents arrived to collect their children, thanking me for the wonderful party and congratulating Ethan on turning 8. Each departure made the absence of my parents more glaring. By 6 o'clock the last guest had left, and Ethan and I were alone among the remnants of the celebration. "Should we call Grandma and Grandpa?" Ethan asked quietly as we began cleaning up. Maybe they got lost or their car broke down. The innocence of his question, his desire to find any explanation other than the truth, made my chest tighten. "We can try," I said, dialing my mother's number on speakerphone. It went straight to voicemail again. "Hi, Mom. The party is over now, but Ethan and I were worried about you and Dad. Please call us back when you get this message to let us know you are okay." I hung up and saw Ethan's shoulders slump. He picked up a fallen dinosaur banner and folded it carefully. "Maybe something really important came up," he said, his voice small. Maybe I agreed, not wanting to voice my suspicions that whatever had come up was not nearly as important as he was. We cleaned up together, storing leftover cake and taking down decorations. Ethan was unusually quiet, methodically going through the motions, but missing the excitement he had shown earlier in the day. When we finished, he sat on the couch looking through his birthday cards. "Grandma and Grandpa did not send a card either," he observed. "They might bring it when they visit next time," I suggested, though the words felt hollow even to me. That night, as promised, we set up the telescope in the backyard. The sky was clear, perfect for stargazing. I helped Ethan focus the telescope on the moon, and his gasp of wonder when he saw the craters up close momentarily pushed aside the disappointment of the day. "It is so beautiful," he whispered. "Like another world." "It is another world," I told him. And now you can explore it whenever you want. We spent an hour looking at the moon, Mars, and a few bright stars before the chill in the air drove us inside. As I tucked Ethan into bed surrounded by his new gifts, he asked the question I had been dreading. Dad, do Grandma and Grandpa not love me as much as their other stuff? The question hit me like a physical blow. I sat on the edge of his bed, choosing my words carefully. Ethan, your grandparents love you very much. I began sticking to what I hoped was true. Sometimes adults make mistakes and make the wrong choices about what is important. It is not about you not being important or lovable. It is about them not understanding what really matters. But I matter, right? His voice was so small. You matter more than anything in the world to me, I said, firmly hugging him close. You are the most important person in my life, and nothing will ever change that. He nodded against my shoulder, and I felt a dampness that told me he was crying quietly. I held him until he fell asleep, his small hand clutching mine, even in slumber. As I gently extracted myself, I made a promise that I would never let my parents hurt him this way again. Something had to change. The next morning I woke to a text message from my mother that made my blood boil. Sorry we could not make it, things came up. We will try to stop by sometime next week with Ethan's gift. No explanation, no real apology, just a casual dismissal of her grandson's feelings and a vague promise of future attention. It was as if missing his birthday was equivalent to canceling a lunch date. I stared at the message for several minutes, trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps there had been a genuine emergency. Perhaps something truly important had prevented them from attending or even calling. I took a deep breath and called her, wanting to hear her explanation directly. Hello, Adam, my mother answered, her voice perfectly composed as always. Did you get my message? I did, I replied, keeping my tone neutral for now. What happened yesterday? Ethan was really looking forward to seeing you and Dad. Oh, we had an important social obligation that came up last minute, she said vaguely. You know how these things are. We simply could not get out of it. What kind of social obligation? I pressed. Some business associates of your father's invited us to an event. Networking is crucial in this economy, Adam. I am sure Ethan had a lovely party without us. The casual way she dismissed her grandson's disappointment made my grip tighten on the phone. He kept watching the door for you. He asked if we could wait to cut the cake because he thought you might still come. Children are resilient, she replied. He will understand when he is older. Now we were thinking of stopping by next Saturday with his gift. Would that work for your schedule? Before I could respond, my father took the phone. Adam, your mother said you seem upset. It was just a children's party. There will be plenty more birthdays. It was not just a party to Ethan, I said, my voice rising slightly. He specifically asked for you to be there, and you promised him you would come. Now you are overreacting, my father said dismissively. We have important connections to maintain. The world does not stop for an 8-year-old's birthday party. I was about to respond when a call beeped in from Ashley. I have to go, I told my father. We will talk later. I switched to Ashley's call, hoping my sister might be more understanding. Mom says you are making a big deal about yesterday, she said without preamble. It was just a kid's party, Adam. It was your nephew's birthday, Ashley. They promised him they would be there. Things come up, she replied, echoing our mother's words. You cannot expect them to drop everything for a children's party. You always expect too much from them. I expect them to keep their promises to an 8-year-old, I countered. Is that really too much? You chose this life, she said, referring to my career and divorce as if they were character flaws. They are just trying to help you succeed despite your choices. After hanging up with Ashley, I sat in stunned silence. Their complete lack of understanding or remorse was astounding. As I scrolled through social media to distract myself, something caught my eye. My mother had posted yesterday right around the time of Ethan's party. It was not a private emergency or a critical business meeting. It was a photo from a luxury box at the football stadium showing my parents and sister smiling with cocktails in hand, dressed in team colors. The caption read, Surprise tickets to see our team play from the executive suite. So blessed to enjoy life's special moments with family. Family. They had chosen a football game over their grandson's birthday and had the audacity to post about family and special moments. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. With shaking hands, I logged into our joint credit card account, a remnant from when I was in college that we had maintained for emergencies. The most recent transaction jumped out immediately: $7,900 for VIP executive box at NFL game, 3 seats. The charge was dated the day of Ethan's birthday. I scrolled through Ashley's social media and found more photos from the game. One showed my parents clinking glasses with some business associates, the timestamp corresponding exactly with when Ethan was waiting for them to arrive at his party. The pieces fell into place. They had not had a last-minute emergency. They had chosen to spend nearly $8,000 on football tickets instead of attending their grandson's birthday party. They had made a deliberate choice to break their promise to an 8-year-old child who adored them despite their neglect. As I sat processing this revelation, Ethan wandered into the kitchen, still in his pajamas, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Morning, Dad," he yawned. "Did Grandma and Grandpa call?" I forced a smile. "Grandma sent a text. They want to come visit next weekend." "Oh." His small face registered disappointment before he quickly masked it. "That is okay. Can we use my telescope again tonight?" "Absolutely," I promised. "And maybe we can try to find Saturn. The rings are visible this time of year." He brightened at that and began eating the breakfast I prepared. As I watched him, I realized this pattern had gone on too long. Each disappointment chipped away at his self-worth, teaching him that he was not important enough to prioritize. As his father, it was my job to protect him, even if that meant protecting him from his own grandparents. The $7,900 charge represented more than just football tickets. It was a symbol of every time they had chosen something else over Ethan, every broken promise, every disappointment. It was time to break the cycle. After dropping Ethan off at school, I returned home and sat at my kitchen table staring at the credit card statement on my laptop. The $7,900 charge seemed to mock me. 3 VIP seats that cost more than 2 months of my mortgage payments. 3 seats that apparently held more value than a promise to an 8-year-old boy. I had maintained financial ties with my parents out of a mixture of practicality and hope. The joint credit card was originally established when I was in college, a way for them to help with emergency expenses. After graduation, it remained active, occasionally used for shared family expenses or genuine emergencies. I had kept it partly because severing it seemed like severing one more connection to my family, an admission that our relationship was broken beyond repair. But now, looking at that charge, I realized the connection was already broken. The card had become just another way for my parents to exert control while giving nothing meaningful in return. With resolute calm, I called the credit card company. "I would like to dispute a charge," I explained to the representative. "It was not authorized by me, and I was not present for the transaction." "Can you provide the date and amount of the charge?" the representative asked. I gave her the details, explaining that while it was a joint account, I had not approved this specific large purchase. After answering several security questions and explaining the situation, the representative confirmed that the charge would be reversed pending investigation. "Would you like to make any other changes to your account today?" she asked. "Yes," I said firmly. "I would like to pause the card entirely. No new charges should be authorized." "I can do that for you, sir. The card will be suspended immediately." After confirming the details, I thanked her and hung up. A weight lifted from my shoulders, but I knew the real confrontation was just beginning. I drafted a text message, reading it over several times before sending it to my parents and sister in a group chat. "I have reversed the $7,900 charge for NFL tickets and suspended the joint card. I find it interesting that a football game was more important than keeping a promise to your grandson. Going forward, we will need clearer boundaries. Expect contact from my attorney regarding financial separation." My hands trembled slightly as I hit send, but I felt no regret. For too long, I had made excuses for their behavior, allowed them to disappoint Ethan repeatedly, and maintained unhealthy connections out of some misguided sense of family obligation. Enough was enough. The response was immediate and explosive. Within 5 minutes, my phone began ringing. My father's name flashed on the screen. I declined the call. He called again, and again, and again. 14 calls in a row, each one declined, each one reinforcing my resolve. Between calls, text messages began flooding in. My mother, how dare you? We have always been generous with you. This is how you repay us. My father called me back immediately. You have crossed a line. Ashley, you have lost your mind. Mom and Dad are furious. I turned off notification sounds and set my phone aside. I needed to focus on work I had brought home and prepare for Ethan's return from school. This was not a decision made in anger, but a long overdue establishment of boundaries, and I would not be swayed by their predictable outrage. Throughout the day, the voicemails accumulated. I listened to them during my lunch break, noticing the progression from confusion to anger to threats. Adam, this is your father. What do you mean you reversed the charge? Call me back. Adam, this is completely unacceptable behavior. Call me immediately. If you think you can simply cut us off financially without consequences, you are sorely mistaken. We have supported you far more than you realize. This childish behavior will have serious repercussions for both you and Ethan. The last voicemail made my blood run cold. They were now threatening my son's well-being, suggesting that their financial support, which had been minimal and inconsistent at best, was something Ethan would suffer without. It only reinforced that I was making the right decision. My mother's messages were more manipulative, playing on emotions and family ties. I cannot believe my own son would do this to us. After everything we have done for you, I am deeply hurt. We were planning to set up a college fund for Ethan next month. I guess you do not want him to have that opportunity. Ashley's messages veered between defending our parents and expressing disbelief at my actions. Mom is in tears because of what you did. Are you happy now? Dad says he might have to involve his lawyers. Is that what you want? A legal battle with your own family. I turned my phone off completely and focused on creating a special evening for Ethan. When I picked him up from school, I suggested we get pizza and set up his new telescope properly for an extended stargazing session. Really? On a school night, he asked, surprised and delighted. Really, I confirmed. I thought we could celebrate your birthday a little more, just the two of us. We spent the evening identifying constellations, tracking the moon, and even spotting Saturn's rings, just as I had promised. Ethan's excitement and wonder were the perfect reminder of what truly mattered. As I watched him marvel at the cosmos, I felt a sense of peace about my decision. This was worth protecting. After Ethan went to bed, I turned my phone back on to find even more messages, increasingly desperate and angry. I scrolled through them briefly, then set the phone aside again. That night, I lay awake thinking about years of similar patterns of expectations and disappointments of trying to maintain a relationship that brought more pain than joy. The more I reflected, the more certain I became that clear boundaries were long overdue, not just for my sake, but for Ethan's. The next morning started like any other. I made breakfast for Ethan, helped him pack his backpack, and drove him to school. We talked about his science project due next week, and he asked if we could use the telescope again that night. If the sky is clear, absolutely, I promised as I dropped him off. Have a great day, buddy. I love you. Love you too, Dad, he called over his shoulder as he ran to join his friends. As soon as I pulled away from the school, my phone rang. It was my father again. I declined the call and drove home, preparing myself for the workday ahead. Teaching middle school science required focus and energy, neither of which would be served by engaging with my parents' drama before work. When I arrived home to gather my teaching materials, I found an email from my father waiting in my inbox. The subject line read, "Financial consequences." The message was brief but threatening, Adam. Your rash actions will have serious financial consequences. The generous support we have provided over the years can be withdrawn as easily as you withdrew our card privileges. Think carefully about what you are doing to this family. Your mother is devastated by your behavior. It was followed by another email from my mother, subject line, deeply hurt. I cannot believe my own son would do this to me. After all the sacrifices we have made for you and Ethan, I am deeply hurt by your accusations and actions. We had a legitimate reason for missing the party, and to punish us financially this way is cruel and ungrateful. Neither message contained an actual apology for disappointing Ethan or any recognition that spending nearly $8,000 on football tickets while breaking a promise to their grandson was problematic. It was all about them, their feelings, their perceived generosity. I was about to put my phone away when a text from Ashley came through. "We are outside in the rain." My heart skipped a beat. I moved to the front window and peered through the curtains. Sure enough, my parents' luxury SUV was parked in my driveway, and my father, mother, and sister were standing on my front porch. My father's face was flushed with anger. My mother looked teary-eyed, in a performative way I recognized from childhood, and Ashley stood slightly behind them, phone in hand. I took a deep breath. I had hoped to have this confrontation on my terms, preferably when Ethan was not around. At least he was safely at school now, so I could handle this without him witnessing the ugliness. They knocked on the door aggressively, the sound echoing through my quiet house. I stood my ground, taking another moment to compose myself before approaching the door. Through the window, I could see that it had indeed started to rain lightly, but they made no move to return to their car or find shelter. The dramatic image of them standing in the rain waiting to confront me was exactly the kind of scene my mother would describe later to friends and family to illustrate how cruelly I had treated them. The knocking became more insistent. Finally, I opened the door, but remained in the doorway blocking entry. "What are you doing here?" I asked calmly. "I have to leave for work soon." "What am I doing here?" my father sputtered, his face growing redder. "You reverse a charge on my credit card, send threatening messages about lawyers, and you ask what I am doing here? You need to fix this immediately," my mother added, her voice quivering with what I now recognized as manufactured emotion. "Call the credit card company and tell them it was a mistake." I noticed Ashley had her phone positioned as if recording the interaction. "Are you filming this?" I asked her. "Someone needs to document how unreasonable you are being," she replied. "So, everyone can see the truth." I almost laughed at the irony. The truth. You want to talk about truth? How about the truth that you all chose a football game over your nephew's birthday party? The truth that you spent nearly $8,000 on VIP seats instead of keeping a promise to an 8-year-old? "That is not fair," my mother protested. "We had important connections at that game." "More important than Ethan," I challenged. "Business connections benefit Ethan too," my father argued. "Everything we do is ultimately for this family's security and success." "Except actually being there for him," I countered. "Do you know what he asked me after you did not show up? He asked if you do not love him as much as your other stuff." Those were his exact words. My mother's expression flickered briefly with what might have been genuine remorse before her defensive mask returned. Children say things they do not mean when they are disappointed. "We were going to make it up to him. Like you made up for missing his school play, or his Little League game, or the science fair where he won first place." I could feel years of frustration boiling over. This was not an isolated incident. This is a pattern of Ethan always being at the bottom of your priority list. "That is simply not true," my father insisted. "We have been very generous. Generous with money when it is convenient for you," I acknowledged, "but consistently stingy with your time and attention, which is what he actually needs." Ashley stepped forward. "You have always been so dramatic, Adam. Not everything revolves around you and Ethan." "This isn't about me," I clarified. "This is about an 8-year-old boy who deserves better than broken promises from the people who are supposed to love him unconditionally." "We do love him," my mother insisted, tears now flowing freely. Whether they were genuine or for effect, I could no longer tell. "How can you question that?" "I question it because actions speak louder than words," I replied. "And your actions consistently show that Ethan is an afterthought." My father's patience visibly snapped. "Enough of this nonsense. You will call the credit card company today and reverse the dispute, or there will be serious consequences." "What consequences?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tension. "Are you threatening me?" I am reminding you that your financial situation is more precarious than you seem to realize, he said coldly. The tuition assistance for Ethan's summer science camp, the contributions to your emergency fund, the joint investment account we established for his college, all of that can disappear. For a moment, fear flickered through me. They had provided some financial support over the years, though far less than they implied. The thought of losing that safety net was intimidating, especially on a teacher's salary. But as I looked at their expectant faces, I realized the cost of that support was too high if it meant subjecting Ethan to more disappointment and conditional love. If that is what you need to do, I said finally, then do it. They stared at me in shock. This was not the response they had expected. They had assumed the threat of financial consequences would bring me back in line, as it had in the past. You cannot be serious, Ashley said. You are a single father on a teacher's salary. You need their help. What I need, I corrected her, is to protect my son from people who repeatedly hurt him. If the price of your financial help is allowing you to continue breaking his heart, then it is too expensive. My mother's tears stopped abruptly, replaced by cold anger. After everything we have done for you, I am grateful for the support you have provided, I acknowledged. But it does not give you the right to consistently disappoint and hurt Ethan without consequences. So this is it, my father demanded. You are cutting us off from our own grandson. I am establishing boundaries, I clarified. Ethan deserves relationships with people who keep their promises and prioritize his well-being. If you want to be in his life, you need to demonstrate that you can be those people. The rain was falling harder now, but none of us moved. We stood frozen in this moment of confrontation that had been building for years. You will regret this, my father said finally. When you realize how difficult it is without our support, you will regret this decision. Maybe, I admitted. But I would regret continuing to let Ethan believe he is not important enough to keep promises to even more. With that, I stepped back and began to close the door. I have to go to work now. We can talk about this when everyone is calmer. As the door closed, I heard my mother's indignant gasp and my father's angry protest. Through the window, I watched them stand there for a moment longer, before reluctantly returning to their car, Ashley trailing behind them, still filming. My hands were shaking, but my resolve was firm. For too long, I had enabled their behavior out of fear, habit, and misplaced hope. It was time for change, whatever the consequences might be. In the days that followed our confrontation, I took concrete steps to establish financial independence from my parents. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in family law and financial matters to ensure that any joint accounts or financial entanglements were properly addressed. Though my parents had threatened to withdraw all support, I was determined to stand on my own 2 feet for Ethan's sake. We need to close the joint investment account, I instructed the lawyer. And I want to make sure there are no legal claims they can make regarding Ethan or our living situation. Based on what you have told me, they have no legal standing to make demands about your son, she assured me. As for the financial aspects, we can work through each account methodically. I had already been saving for Ethan's education, independently building a modest college fund that, while not as substantial as what my parents might have provided, represented my commitment to his future. I also had an emergency fund that would cover 3 months of expenses if needed. It was not ideal, but it was a foundation I could build upon. My parents' threats escalated over the next week. My father sent formal letters outlining all the financial support they would be withdrawing, clearly expecting the reality of independence to send me crawling back apologetically. My mother left tearful voicemails about how I was tearing the family apart and depriving Ethan of his loving grandparents. Ashley was perhaps the most aggressive, sending daily texts about how selfish and ungrateful I was being. They were going to pay for Ethan's college education, she wrote. Are your petty feelings worth sacrificing his future? I did not respond to any of these messages. Instead, I focused on creating stability for Ethan, explaining the situation in age-appropriate terms. Are Grandma and Grandpa mad at me? He asked one evening as we worked on his science project. Nobody, not at all, I assured him. They love you very much. Right now, Grandma, Grandpa, and I are having some grown-up disagreements about how we treat each other. It has nothing to do with you. But will I still see them? he asked, his small face concerned. I hope so, I said honestly. But only if they can keep their promises to you. Everyone deserves to have people in their life who keep their promises, especially important ones. He thought about this seriously, then nodded. Like when you promise to come to my games and you always do, even when you have papers to grade. Exactly like that, I said, my heart swelling with both pride and sadness that my 8-year-old understood something my parents could not seem to grasp. 2 weeks of silence followed. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits. I used the time to focus on work on Ethan and on building our new normal. We had dinner with friends, more often spent evenings stargazing with the telescope, and I reached out to other parents at school to strengthen our support network. Then unexpectedly, Ashley called on a Sunday afternoon while Ethan was at a friend's house. Can we talk? She asked, her voice lacking its usual defensive edge. Of course, I replied, cautiously optimistic about her changed tone. I have been thinking about what you said, she began. About Ethan being at the bottom of their priority list. I saw his face when he was looking for them at his party. I was there when they decided to go to the game instead. This admission surprised me. You were there when they made that decision. Yes, she confessed. Dad got the tickets from a business associate the day before. Mom said they should go to Ethan's party instead, but Dad insisted the connection was too important. I should have said something. Why did not you? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Because I have always gone along with what they want, she said softly. It is easier that way. We talked for nearly an hour. For the first time, Ashley shared her own frustrations with our parents' conditional love and status obsession. Though she had seemingly thrived under their approval by following their prescribed path, she too felt the constant pressure to prioritize appearances and connections over authentic relationships. They were wrong about the birthday, she admitted finally. I am sorry I did not stand up for Ethan. It was a small step, but a significant one. Thank you for saying that, I told her. It means a lot. Over the next few weeks, Ashley and I began rebuilding our relationship. She visited occasionally, spending time with Ethan without our parents present. She brought no lavish gifts, just her time and attention, which Ethan valued far more anyway. 6 months passed before my parents reached out again. By then, I had established complete financial independence. I had taken on extra tutoring work to build my emergency fund, opened a separate college savings account for Ethan, and even received a small promotion at school for developing an innovative science curriculum. Their message came in the form of a formal email, not a call or visit. We have been reflecting on recent events, my father wrote. Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding about our priorities. We would like to see Ethan when convenient. It was not exactly an apology, but it was an acknowledgement that something needed to change. I responded with clear conditions. Ethan would love to see you, but only if you can commit to keeping your promises to him. No more last-minute cancellations for social events. No more broken commitments, without extremely serious reasons and proper explanations directly to him. Our first reunion was cautious. We met at a neutral location, a park where Ethan could play if the interaction became tense. My parents arrived on time bearing a modest gift and uncharacteristic humility. We have missed you, Ethan, my mother said, her usual polish somewhat diminished. She looked older, more vulnerable. I missed you too, Ethan replied, giving them each a quick hug before running to the playground. While he played within sight, I had a frank conversation with my parents. This is a second chance, I told them. Possibly the last one. I need you to understand that Ethan's well-being is non-negotiable. We understand, my father said, his typical dominance subdued. We do not want to lose him. Or you. Their behavior over the following months was not perfect, but it showed effort. They missed one planned visit, but called Ethan directly to explain and reschedule, making a specific commitment for the following weekend, which they kept. They began showing interest in his science projects and attended his school play, sitting proudly in the audience as he delivered his 2 lines perfectly. We did not return to financial entanglement. That boundary remained firm. They occasionally offered financial assistance, which I politely declined. We are doing well on our own, I would tell them. What Ethan needs from you is your time and attention. Meanwhile, I focused on building new traditions and support systems for Ethan. We joined a community astronomy club, formed closer bonds with neighbors and school families, and established regular video calls with Megan, who remained a loving presence in Ethan's life despite the distance. Ethan thrived under the new boundaries and consistent relationships. His confidence grew, and he no longer anxiously checked the door when expecting visitors, no longer feared that important people would fail to show up. He learned that his worth was not determined by others' ability to prioritize him, but was inherent and unshakable. As for me, I discovered a strength I had not known I possessed. Standing firm against my parents' manipulation and threats had been terrifying but ultimately liberating. I no longer measured my worth by their approval or feared their disapproval. Our relationship would never be perfect, but it was now at least honest. When Ashley texted me one rainy evening 6 months after our confrontation saying, "They are really trying. Mom turned down a charity gala to attend Ethan's science fair next week." I smiled and replied, "The door is open, but only if you are ready to truly be present in Ethan's life. No more empty promises." Her response came quickly, "I think we are all learning what truly matters. It should not have taken so long." She was right. It should not have taken so long, should not have required such a dramatic confrontation. But some lessons come at a high price, and the most valuable family lesson I had learned was that protecting those we love sometimes requires making difficult choices and standing firm, even when it feels like everything might fall apart. That night, as Ethan and I gazed at the stars through his telescope, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for years. The patterns of the past did not need to determine our future. We had broken free of toxic expectations and created something healthier, something real. Dad, Ethan said thoughtfully, as we located Jupiter's moons, "I am glad Grandma and Grandpa are coming to my science fair." "Me too, buddy," I replied honestly. "But even if they could not come," he added, "I would still be okay because you are always there." In that moment, I knew that all the financial security in the world could not compare to the gift of being truly present for those we love. It was a lesson I hoped my parents would fully learn someday. But regardless of their journey, Ethan and I were already walking a better path. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members to protect someone you love? What helped you find the strength to stand firm? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complicated family dynamics and finding the courage to prioritize what truly matters. Thank you for listening. And remember that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is establish clear boundaries, even when it hurts.